Welcome everybody. This is Mark Hummel and this is Mark Hummel's Harmonica Party. And I am in Trinidad, Colorado with my buddy Tad Robinson, who hails from, are you from Indianapolis or just outside?
Well, I live in a small college town, Greencastle, Indiana now. I'm originally from New York City, way back in the day. And went out to the Midwest when I was about college age, and I've stayed in Chicago, Indiana ever since then. So my roots are out in the East Coast, but it's been a long time. I moved away from New York when I was about 18.
And for those that don't know, Tad is one of the preeminent soul and blues vocalists in the country, if not the world. He's recorded many recordings for both Delmark and Severn Records, solo recordings. And you had there was a recent Delmark project you did with Ken Sadak.
We did kind of a reunion with, when I used to live in Chicago, I worked a lot with Steve Freund, Ken Sadak, Harlan Turson, Marty Binder, among other people.
Right.
That's when I worked a lot with Dave Specter. And so somebody got the idea a few years ago to get that team back together. And we, the Delmark Records is at 4121 North Rockwell Avenue in Chicago. And so we thought we would name the band Rockwell Avenue Blues Band.
Okay. All right.
In case people didn't get that private joke. But yeah, so we reunited at Rockwell Avenue at the Delmark Studios, and we cut a record. And it's always great to play with people like Steve Freund and that rhythm section of Harlan Turson and Marty Binder. They've worked with hundreds of artists. We were in a band together called Big Shoulders back in the 80s. And that was really Ken's band. And I was a singer in that band. And
now, wasn't there a harp player in that band?
Ron Soren,
right? Great
harmonica player. Yeah, it was a really interesting kind of an Americana album, and some blues, there was some kind of folky aspect to it, and Ken was most of all the writer for that band. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so we go way back. So this is fun to be in Colorado.
And you've done this festival numerous times.
I have. Yeah. This festival started back in 1999.
This is Trinidadeo.
Yeah, the Trinidadeo Blues Festival in Trinidad, Colorado. You know, 22 years later, 23 years later. Yeah. And they're still going strong. And tonight, you'll do the James Cotton tribute with the great band that you have assembled here, and Sugar Ray Rayford is here, and
we had a great time last night with you on the gig.
That you know, you know, like I was, when you're thrust into that kind of situation, you know, a lot of harp players do that. You know, it's just like show up, and you have your bag of tricks, and you have the backing band, but you know, it's like flying without a net, you know, to a certain extent. But you know, people speak the same language, and they know, you know, they kind of can, you know, great musicians like what you have with you here with Rico McFarlane and Tom Holland and the Mac
guys
brothers
that you already knew.
Well, I knew Rico and Tom. I did not know the Mac brothers, this great rhythm section, but I've known Rico and Tom for years because of our Chicago connection. Because I lived, like I said, I grew up in New York, then I moved to Indiana, but then we moved to, my wife Amy and I moved to Chicago for about 10 years. And
what years did you move?
That was like 84 to 94, something.
Because that was a good time there was still quite a bit.
You know what, when I moved to Chicago, within, you know, I was stocking shelves at a liquor store and kind of, you know, trying to get one foot in front of the other. But very soon after that, there was a lot of club work that was just there. And, you know, you meet the talent pool in a given city. Like, that's when I met my brothers, you know, Steve Freund and Dave Specter and Ken Sadak and John McDonald and Marvin Jackson and any number of people, Bob Hallage, who just various people. Worked with Larry Bell on guitar, worked with Bither Smith a few times, you know, just the usual suspects in that talent pool. And there was club work to be had. I mean, I was working like 5, 6, 7 clubs within the first year.
Wow.
You know, of living there. It wasn't. I mean, there was a pretty thriving blues scene. I thought, you know, some people would say, "Oh, it was nothing like it was," you know,
in the '60s.
But, yeah, right. But you know, for my purposes, and getting to a new city and getting my feet wet in that scene, and then Dave Specter kind of recruited me to be the singer and harp player in his band.
Right.
This was about '92.
I know. I met him in '89 when I first went to Chicago, and I saw Freund and Sunnyland, and he was there that night. And he kind of showed me around. I remember the first 2-3 days I was in Chicago.
Yeah, Dave, you know, he was born and bred in Chicago, and he knows that city, and he has a lot of influence in that city and the blues world,
but he was kind of
a great player. Well, he was just starting out.
He was sort of one of Freund's proteges.
Yeah, right.
When I met him.
Yep, he was taking some lessons with Steve, and then he became, you know, he went off and developed his own voice as a guitar player, which is something that
hard to do.
It is, because so many guitar players, you know, end up sounding maybe like their heroes, but they don't have their own distinctive style. I mean, that's hard on any instrument.
Yeah,
I would, you know, but he
really kind of went toward a jazz. Yep, kind of a jazz.
And he writes really great little instrumentals and almost like soundtracky, very groovy, jazzy instrumentals. And he's gone on to record with so many people. But he gave me kind of my start with Delmark, bringing me in to do that record, Blueplicity, where we did that. And then shortly after, I remember Bob Kester at Delmark said, "You won't make a ton of money at this label, but you'll go to Europe and it'll be a good stepping stone for other things in your career." And within about 4 or 5 months, we did go and do a live record in Europe. We did the Bremenal in Bremen, Germany. And we did a live record there. And we met up with our friends, the Blues Shacks. A German outfit that has become like one of the biggest on the continent over there. They're a pretty big blues band there. Great players, great friends of mine. And it's interesting because when you start meeting musicians in other parts of the world, then you get their little flavor. I mean, even in the States, you know, you go out to the West Coast and they play a certain way. You go to Chicago and they play a certain way. And, you know, I like to... I like to just hear what's going on in different scenes, and I've been fortunate enough that, you know, some folks will have me as a guest, you know, and so I can go and kind of venture out and play my music with other people. So that's been really a gift. So Bob Kester was right. I mean, the Delmark connection set that ball in motion. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to Germany, I'm going to France, Belgium, Holland, Scandinavia, Eastern Europe. And one thing, it's just like playing anywhere. Once you do a gig, then someone hears you and they go, "Oh, can you come and do our gig?" You know? And hopefully they ask you back, and that you build a circuit, you know.
And you just got back from a year.
I was in Finland about 3 weeks ago in Estonia, and we did a nice 10-day run. We did eight shows in 9 days. I had air trouble, got there a day late, but thank heaven, you usually pad your trip so that that extra day up in front, and I needed it because I would have missed the Estonia festival, which was kind of the linchpin of the whole trip. That was really the sweetest gig, and it was first, and it involved 2 flights, a drive, and a ferry. And everything, the timing had to be perfect. If the ferry schedule had been just off, I would have probably missed being there in time. You know, so that's stress that no one needs.
That is,
but knock on wood, most of the travels somehow come together, as you know. I mean, you know, you just have to just hope that the connections can be made, and that everybody shows up. Because that would have been disappointing to miss the sweetest gig.
No kidding.
And not to mention the repercussions financially that, you know, there would have been a lot of, just kind of a mess.
And then you just did something with Ray and Sugar Ray.
Before the Finland thing and the Estonia thing, about 3 weeks earlier, I was in Italy doing a blues workshop and jam sessions, as it was billed, in near Torino, Italy, in Castagnola Piemonte, Italy, which is a small town, but it's the home of the great Hammond player Alberto Marsico.
Right,
really a treasure in Italy.
He's great. Yeah, he's amazing.
He's a wonderful player, great accompanist for a singer.
Yeah,
I mean, just really in tune, sensitive musician to work with. But he puts on this blues workshop where most of the people that went to it were professional musicians or really good musicians, but who wanted to learn more about blues, R&B, American music. So they're Europeans in Germany, France, Holland, but who came to Italy, to this very scenic, peaceful town, to stay for a week and have these intense workshops. So, Duke Robillard and Alex Schultz handled the guitar workshops, and they had a lot of students. They probably had 20 students or more to split between them. And then Sugar Ray Norcia and I did the vocals and the harmonica workshops. Mudcat Ward handled the bass. Mark Teixeira was the drum coach, and Alberto did keys. So you had people really, for a week, really steeped in this learning and sharing, and then jam sessions, and then at the end of the week, the students give a concert, and then the teachers give a concert.
Sounds amazing.
So it was really nice for me to be able to, work with Duke Robillard.
Sure.
I did, 4 songs with that unit, with Mudcat and Mark and Duke and Alex and Alberto. And Alex Schultz you've worked with. And Alex Schultz. Well, we go back because we both grew up in New York, and we used to play music as teenagers.
I didn't know that.
Alex, when I met him, he was about 16, 17, 18. He was playing a big hollow body, and he was very immersed in like Tal Farlow, George Benson, more legit
he took lessons from George Barnes.
He studied with George Barnes.
That's amazing.
So he was really phrasing and playing in more of a, I was trying to think of Kenny Burrell as another influence. But so, and then I kind of came along and was blowing harp, and he's like, what's that? And he started hearing Robert Lockwood and people like that. He started hearing Sonny Boy Williamson. And not so much Little Walter, because at that point I was playing more in a Junior Wells, Sonny Boy Williamson, Rice Miller vein. And so he started hearing what you do behind harp as a guitar player, which, as you know, is so integral to what we do.
Oh, yeah.
And the way I look at it is so many of the great harmonica instrumentals, things like Off the Wall or Juke or, anything you want to name about it. To me, they're almost less harmonica solos as duets, because what the guitar part is doing.
Very interwoven.
Exactly. So it's like, you can't really play that without having the information in the band and the band itself. It's more than just, the guitar, but that's so crucial.
Oh, it is. Absolutely.
And so Alex was really, I planted that seed in him to think of, if Tad's going to blow harmonica, what should I be playing? And then he learned some of those things, like from King Biscuit Time or from the R. Hooley Big Walter with Johnny Young, or just hearing, what does a guitar player play? How does he come behind harp? And then, of course, he became the guitarist with Rod Piazza and also William Clark.
His playing with William Clark was amazing.
So he became he took that and became, an expert, so to speak, on that, which is such a small niche in the music world. You take the music world, then you take the blues world, then you take the blues world that includes harmonica
and guitar.
And then,
it is tiny,
but he became really good at that that skill. And you know, you could look around the world, and I mean, there are some states there's probably not a guy that really is good at that. So you have to skip like 3 or 4 states over. There's a guy in in San Francisco.
It's a very rare thing. Yeah,
sure and, you know, so it's kind of inside baseball, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard for if you're doing this kind of music. Like in my town where I live in Indianapolis, we have Paul Holtman, and then there's a guy named Gordon Bonham. They're both very established and great musicians and great players, and they know like that genre.
Right.
But if like when I'm doing gigs locally, if I can't get either one of those guys,
you're
then I I mean, there's a few others. I you know what I mean. I'm being a little harsh, but sometimes you might as well just leave the harp home. I mean, you know.
Well, you're really known you're known so much as a vocalist because of your soul vocals. And I mean, you know, at the same time, it's like you started in blues, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I mean, I did, and I kind of branched off, and I've been playing harp since I was, you know, a little kid. Just,
right.
You know,
and you're a great harp player.
Thank you, man. I mean,
you really don't give yourself the credit you should be.
Because
you're really
I hear the difference. You know, I mean, I really admire these, you know, some of these guys like yourself and Kyle Rowland last night. I mean,
he was pretty mind-blowing last night.
He's got the whole, and he has a nice way of presenting it,
right?
You know, it's user friendly. I mean, people are drawn to it rather than like, you know, like this. They're like, oh, this guy,
it's so unusual now for young people.
Yeah,
you know, someone in their 20s or 30s to really be into what we're into. It's a rarity,
and I think that he has the capacity of maybe drawing in.
That's what we hope.
20-somethings and 30-somethings like himself to go. Oh, I dig. What's this?
Right.
Because many people have never heard it.
That's exactly.
Yeah. You know, this great American art form that is right here, that was created, invented here, and then you have a lot of Americans who
don't even know what it is.
They're not aware. I mean, they're not even aware of the Mount Rushmore figures of the genre.
Right.
Like you know, they might have heard of a handful of them. They might have heard of B.B. King. Probably heard of
Muddy Waters.
Maybe Muddy. I mean, and and then you know, in the modern day, maybe they've heard of some of
Joe Bonamassa,
some of the guitar hero guys. Which is great, and I know that a lot of those folks, I mean, Stevie Ray always tried to educate people about Albert King and all these other people, and Joe does the same thing from what I understand. I'm not that knowledgeable about what he does, but I know that he is self-aware enough that he promotes where the music came from.
Right.
And includes people like, you know, Kirk, and other people in his in what he's doing.
Yeah.
So